Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. My name is Carlos Morales, founder of Missionary Christian Apparel, and now this podcast. Welcome, guys. I am so excited to start this first chapter off. This first chapter has a new guest, a brand new guest. It's not me. I know y'all wanted me by myself. But no, today's episode is going to be actually somebody. Just like in every episode, I want to bring guests. I want to hear y'all listen to different people's point of view, different people's testimony, their perspective on things. So it's not just all about what I think. It's about different opinions, different points of view. So chapter 1 is gonna be over Apostle Paul. I know for a lot of y'all know who that is, and that brings very exciting news because there is a lot to talk about Apostle Paul. He is somebody for me personally who, when I first started in this path, really impacted me, and I really took that story and his testimony and what he did to heart. So chapter 1 is going to be Apostle Paul, what he did, and he is known for a lot of his missions. And so I have brought somebody who could talk to us a little bit about history, a little bit about, deeper into that aspect. I have brought my fellow brother and theologian, youth minister. Introduce yourself, bro.
All right, Carlos. Well, thank you for having me here today. I am a youth minister. I'm your brother. Like, literally, we came from the same mother. And I've been a youth minister for a while. Don't remember exactly when it started. I don't know how many years, but I think it's about 7 years now. And not that long ago, I decided to go to school and continue school and study theology. So I'm in the process of wrapping that part of my life as well. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to share with you all a little bit more about Paul. And yeah, man, let's get it.
Yeah, so basically in today's episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about, who is Paul? Because I remember at the beginning, there's very like vague points of that you can find in Paul, apostles, oh yeah, that guy that they read about and talk about in Acts of the Apostles. But I feel like Paul has so much to talk about, so many stories, so many events that we can look at and put into our lives. I focus this whole movement in Missione, whatever you want to call it. I focus all of this around how missioning should be a part of our, walk with Christ, because we have to put our part into spreading that word. Just like he said, Mark, go out into all the world and then preach the gospel. And so I feel like missioning starts off where, the gospels end, and that's where there's fruit, which is the Apostle Paul. And so where would you like to start on Apostle Paul? A little bit of background of who he is, how that story started. Why did they choose Acts of the Apostles right after the Gospels and stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. So the interesting thing about Paul, obviously, at first his name was Saul, right? Um, cool thing is that he is a Roman. So he's a Roman citizen. So he's not just any citizen. And it's important to understand that he was a Roman citizen, because knowing that he was a Roman citizen is a reason why he was able to be put to jail, and they needed to give him trial. Like, the Romans had to give him trial because he was a Roman citizen. If he was not a Roman citizen, they could have found him guilty without trial or put him to death, whatever. But I think he even used that to his advantage a lot, because he got thrown to jail a lot. So he's a man who went to jail so many times, not even funny how many times he was in jail, and got out a lot of times, because through the trial they realized that, there's not enough evidence or enough reason why to put this man to death or put this man to stay in jail for much longer, right? So yeah, he was a Roman citizen, and he was a Jew, right? He's a Jew, and one thing to understand about Jews, that they know their faith. This is a guy who studied, who knew how to read, who knew how to write, and because of his knowledge, because of his education, we have what we know today as the New Testament. One of the cool things that people don't really maybe know is that the letters of Paul, right, were written before the four Gospels. So if you really think about it, Paul's the one who started writing things down and sending letters out to different towns, different people to give out that message. So this was another cool thing about Paul. But if we're gonna start somewhere, we need to start with Paul's, obviously, his conversion, like where he encountered Christ. I really want us to go a little bit back and see that Paul comes out in the beginning. I think it's Acts of Apostles chapter 6 or chapter 7, where we see Stephen, right? And Stephen comes out and starts preaching, and he gets killed when people start throwing rocks at him, right? They think what he's saying is blasphemy, and Stephen dies, right? And the last words that Stephen says is that, forgive them, Lord, for they don't know what they're doing. And we need to understand is that Paul and that time Saul is there. He's watching this happen.
Oh, he's there at the moment.
So he's there at that moment, yeah. And some people maybe skim through that verse, but they don't realize that Paul's there. He was one of those people who were watching this happen. So yeah, so what people don't understand is that Paul's conversion began on watching Stephen die. So honestly, what I think is that Stephen dies. He says, "Lord, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." Paul's there. He's watching this. He's watching this man give up his life for Jesus, and Paul is still sent out to keep going after all those who are the followers of Christ, right? And Paul never met Jesus, right? He never really physically met Jesus. This is a couple of time has passed since Jesus' death. So Paul is one of those people who never really meets Jesus. All that he does is he encounters him that one time, when he falls off the horse. There's a big flash of light, and Jesus talks to him. Like it's like a voice like you and me right now. Like he hears the voice of Jesus. It says, Saul, Saul, why are you chasing me? Why are you coming after me? Yeah. And I feel like I could relate, and I feel like many people can relate to the stories that we hear about Jesus, right? So Saul, he hears Stephen talk about Jesus, right? And we hear it and we kind of ignore it, just like Saul ignored Stephen, like he didn't really care what he was saying. And it's not until we have that big encounter, like Saul did when he fell off the horse, is that we start like waking up, like, oh no, like Jesus is talking to me, like God is talking to me. And I feel like that's what happened to Saul. Like he had to have this big manifestation, you could say, to get like wake up and realize that that God was calling him. God had a purpose for him. And like I said, Saul was very well educated. So thanks to that, and I feel like God had a purpose with that. Thanks to that, we have all these letters, and we have this New Testament that is filled with the writings of Paul, and we get to learn a lot about the beginning of the church. But yeah, after that encounter, we know that Paul had to, continue on this path that, Jesus gives him the name Paul, and he has to, go and spread the word, right? He's eager to spread the word. He's eager to share. And we know him as the 13th apostle. We know him as the 13th apostle, and we know him as a man who shared the faith, even though they were not Jews. He shared the faith to everyone. Like he's the reason why we can consider ourselves a universal church, a church where we find our faith everywhere. We find Christians everywhere. Today, I think Paul was a very strong missionary. And it goes with your motto, and he's a very strong missionary who went around. He went to many places. It's crazy the amount of places he's been to, and he spread that gospel. No matter if they were Greek, no matter what they were in the past, he believed that Jesus was for everybody. So that's just like a brief summary of Paul. If we sit here, we're gonna talk for hours about who Paul is. But yeah, man, that man was fearsome, brave, courageous. He did a lot.
Yeah, so basically, that part I did not even know that at the beginning of this part of the Acts of the Apostles, Stephen is somebody that they talk about in the beginning, and then how I didn't even realize that part where Paul was there or at that time Saul, was looking at him and seeing all that. And yeah, just like you said, you know, there's those two stages, like right before the conversion. I think that just like in everybody's life, right before their conversion, you know, life without knowing Christ, without knowing who Jesus really is something you just hear about. You know, you hear about, and you know, probably at that time Saul was probably like, man, this guy's crazy. Like he should have just said, you know, Hail Caesar or something. You know, at the time, instead of dying for Jesus, dying for this. And I'm pretty sure, just like us, just I remember myself, you know, just looking at people who really followed God and did all these things for God, and I would look at them and I'm like, man, these people are crazy. Like literally, like I don't even know what's like. I have never had anything prior to Christ that motivated me that much. I have had hobbies, I've had things I like to do, but to reach a point where I can say I die for it, I never find myself, you know, having something like that. So it's very interesting how, you know, before knowing Christ, who he really is, the perspective we have on people who have that life, you know, we can just, you know, not realize it until we have that moment where we have an impactful encounter with Christ through the Holy Spirit, through however you find them. And I think that that's where you can start now realizing and seeing everything from the other side, because I think that's all that we need. You know, we need that other side, that other perspective. Just like in anything, my motto growing up is I can't judge anything if I haven't done it myself. So I would always try everything. Somebody would tell me, hey, that movie was good. I'd have to go watch it to really tell you, like, hey, that movie was actually good. You know what I mean? Or in anything, or, you know, hey, that kid was good on the field. Until I played against them, I'd be like, you know what, I was better than that kid or something. And so it's all about how, you know, until you see it, and then until you have that moment of conversion, and then you live it. Now you have all the bright blocks to live that life. You saw it. For example, Saul, he saw what happened through that person who loved Christ, to the death of him, and then to that moment where he encountered him. So that's one block, then that's the next block, and now he has both of those blocks, foundations of, like, where he's like, you know, nobody can go up to him and be like, hey, nobody dies for Christ. Paul could be like, no, I saw people die for Christ.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we have to understand, so I said at the beginning, Paul didn't necessarily, like, physically meet Jesus, like, per se, like, when he was alive.
Exactly.
But that's kind of the cool thing, because I feel like Jesus obviously did that for a reason, because Paul, in his head, in Saul, in his head, he's remembering Jesus as this man who died on the cross.
Yeah, just another person.
Probably a crazy person, a person who claimed to be the Messiah. Yeah. You know, he has this negative concept of Jesus.
And around that time, there was a lot of people who would say stuff like that.
Yeah. So, like, he signed up to go look for the Jews. Like, like it's crazy because he's the one who wanted to go, because he felt like that was his obligation as a Jew to go and get the people who are changing things, right, or doing things that is against their faith. So one of the cool things about Paul is that he literally, you know, knows all these negative things about Jesus, but then encounters him, and he doesn't see the same Jesus, or he doesn't hear the same Jesus that he saw on the cross, or he heard about on the cross. He encounters the Messiah, Jesus. Yeah. So the one with the power, the one who had the power to blind him, who had the power to, you know, get him off the horse, like this miraculous power that came over him, and that's what changed. Was like, oh my gosh, you know, this is the real deal. This is the real Jesus, you know.
Exactly.
So I mean, it's like that was his encounter. I think that's what made him like click, like, oh, you know, this is the real deal. Like, this was the Messiah. And I feel that's where we see a very crazy, very extreme conversion with him. And he goes, you know, blind, and has to find another disciple to, you know, help him take the blindness away and everything. But that starts like this whole eager and, you know, desire for him to spread the truth. You know, he was in the lies, and now he wants to go and, you know, spread the truth.
Yeah. So basically, and that's what's the beauty of us having that encounter. When we have that encounter, we can see now the other side, the other perspective, and be like you know what, now I want to have that in my life. Now I want to be a part of that. And just like he signed up to kill the Jews, he is now on the other side, and now he is on the other side, and now he is creating like this movement where he's fighting, and he's being like now a motivation to push Christ into everybody's life and being testimony of everything he did. And so basically that's how the beauty of Paul, where we can see a full conversion of somebody nowadays. Why? Because nowadays, just like you said, we just like he couldn't really see him. He didn't really have that personal encounter with him where he talked to him, where he sat down and looked into his eyes and be like, hey, tell me about yourself. No, it's just like us. We have that moment where we hear about who this person is. We are invited to church. We can have nights of prayer and stuff like that, hear people's testimony, but at the end of the day we will never see him like physically, you know what I mean? And so basically, the apostles had time to be with him. The those people that were around him had seen with their own eyes the miracles and stuff like that. But now those miracles are still alive. Those miracles still are happening, and that person is not there anymore. Physically there with them. And so I think that is that's a very important person that we should look at nowadays. The fact that
Yeah.
he is somebody who can relate to us. How
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, I want you to understand that also Paul, not being one of the original 12 apostles, okay? And I'm not down signing the 12 apostles. They are very important people and they did great and amazing things. But not being one of the original 12 goes out and it's considered to be the apostle of the Gentiles, right? The apostle of those that are not Jews.
yeah.
And he goes and does, I don't want to say more things than the other apostles, but uh, in a way writes more, right?
Yeah.
Because we see his letters. Because
It's
obviously
true.
we gotta understand that the apostles, not everybody was educated.
Yeah, yeah.
Most of them were fishermen. Humble people. So not everybody could have had an education where they could write or had
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they were not even thinking about those things. During that time to write things down. But because of Paul was a scholar, he immediately wrote letters. Like that was his purpose. That was his goal. And because of those letters, we see the foundation of our church. So we see he's the one who created the Apostles' Creed. He's the one who that's kind of designed the way how the church practiced the faith in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so and all these amazing things that he taught us. Not with the idea that he was going to teach us. His idea was his mentality. He was going to teach the town that he was sending the letter to. Obviously, because those letters were saved, we have what is the New Testament today. But yeah, man, Paul was chosen by God for that. I think he was chosen by Christ for that reason. Christ knew what he was doing, and I feel like sometimes we can obviously relate to this. God, you might not understand why God is calling you sometimes, especially to missionary work. Why me? Why is God calling me to be a missionary? Paul, I'm sure he asked himself, Jesus, like, out of everybody,
Yeah.
I'm the one chasing you here. I'm the one trying to, capture all these people who are saying they're Christians. Yeah, you call me, and say, hey, I want you now to be one of mine, and go and be a missionary. And not only go be a missionary, but he goes and shares the word like crazy, and he goes around all of Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Asia, all that area right there.
Mm-hmm.
He is going like crazy, spreading the word. And so you understand, the apostles focused a lot on the Jews, so they were centered in certain areas.
Yeah.
Paul didn't care. Paul, he went to Asia. He went to areas around, what is now, Greece and, what is now like Turkey and all those areas. And he was going around not caring. He spent years traveling. I feel like, honestly, he's probably the one who traveled the most. He went to, like I said, jail so many times because of this.
Yeah.
But being a Roman citizen, he always kind of got away with it. And, Paul was a very, very, I don't want to say stubborn, but he was very, like, authoritative. Like, he didn't care. Like, he said what he needed to say. He did what he needed to do. And he sometimes spoke with kind of like, like come at me, like
Yeah.
he spoke like that. If you read his letters or in Acts of the Apostles, he's like I would have been, he probably would have been like a very like strong
In your
figure,
face,
and,
you
and
know what I
like
mean?
I'm gonna tell you how it is, listen or else, and that got him in trouble at times, but God obviously did not want his purpose to end there, so he made it a way for him to get out. Like that story where he's in the prison, and the there's like an earthquake and the cells open and
Yeah.
everything, like the miraculous delivery out of the prison. And these are things where you just like, wow, God really didn't want his purpose to end there. And so if we continue the story of Paul, Paul doesn't end up dying until he's like 52 or 53.
Mm-hmm.
So he did it for a very long time. And he died by getting his head cut off. As a
Yeah.
Roman citizen, he couldn't be crucified. So what they did was that they imprisoned him for a while, and during that time, they pretty much said, "Hey, you're gonna get your head cut off," and that's how he died. And but I just want you to understand that many times when he was imprisoned, he was writing the letters. So the
Yeah.
letters you see in the New Testament,
Most of them.
most of them he wrote them while he was in prison. So he wasn't just wasting his time in there,
Yeah.
all depressed and all without, all sad and everything that he's in there. No, that dude was working. Like he
Yeah.
was putting in that time and that effort. And why I'm saying this is that God calls us mysteriously without thinking that we have certain gifts, because God
Yeah.
gives us the gifts. God gave Paul those gifts. He was not the same man he was when he was Saul. That's why Jesus changed his name,
Yeah.
because he's like, you're gonna be a new person,
Whole nother person.
a whole nother person. He gave him gifts. He gave him, obviously he kept some of the things he already knew how to do, like
Yeah.
writing and reading, and this authoritative person, his personality. But Jesus also gave him like a bunch of other spiritual gifts,
Yeah.
and he combined to this person that we see today as Paul, and he became a pillar of the church. Him and Peter are considered the pillars of the church. Obviously Peter was chosen to be the leader, but Paul was technically the leader of the Gentiles, of those who were non-Jews, and both of them are considered to be pillars of the church. So hey, man, like God calls anybody. Jesus, don't matter where you're from, who you were, if you kill somebody or you've done something crazy, like God calls everybody to the mission work.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I mean,
yeah, and that is where we all fall under. Also, like anybody, Paul was a murderer. He killed people. So it doesn't matter who you were. Just like Jesus gave Paul a new name, Saul a new name, Paul. That's how we saw and realize and can take to ourselves that it doesn't matter what you did in the past. It doesn't matter who you were. You will become a whole nother person. And in our lives, we can start seeing that when we start letting him mold us, and show us that we are capable of much more plus what we already have. And so you combine both of the things where he has given us gifts and stuff like that to move forward. And the moment where we shut that down, it eliminates all the opportunities for all these things that, like, if Paul in one day, like the first day they put him in jail, he would have been like, you know what, I'm done. Like, I didn't know I was going to end up over here. It would have all ended there. But no, like you said, he was persistent. He was authoritative. He was so confident in what he had been a part of, what God did in him, that he had that motivation to continue going through those things, through those tough
he was
times.
confident in what God called him to do.
Exactly. And so basically, I enjoy a lot of the story of Paul. I think it's somebody who, like you said, is a pillar, an example, a perfect example of how, when we have that encounter, we decide and also can limit and also cannot put limits on what we can do for Christ. Just like he went out, he could have just went, to Greece and back and called it a day, but no, he was going to parts where maybe they didn't even understand him, like places where out of his comfort zone, out of places where it took him years to get to places. It took him maybe days where he's like, I don't even enough money to do this, but I'm gonna go, I'm gonna walk, I'm gonna get on a horse, I'm gonna travel in some way, shape, or form to get that done. And all for one purpose, is to spread and continue to spread what was given to him. And that's the whole point of this. I think that missioning is a moment where you take what you received and give it to others. You don't hold it to yourself. The beauty of this is that it is for everybody, and it is shared to everybody through you, through the people that have that encounter. It's our turn to go out there and to spread that and to share that. Why? Because if you keep it to yourself, it's pointless. Because what did the Son of God even do? He gave his own life. And just like that, he is an example to us of missioning, of motivation to the youth, more than anything, to move and to spread that word as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, and to use those talents.
Exactly.
So like, you know, for me, for example, you know, I studied to be a teacher. So
Yeah.
that was, I guess you could say, my talent per se. I studied to be a teacher, but me getting my, going to school, going to college, and learning how to be a good teacher and all that good stuff helped me in my ministry with the youth.
Yeah.
That helped me. That was a talent that God gave me. I brought it over to His service, and God gave more fruit with it.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't have gone to study to be a teacher, not saying you have to be a teacher to be a youth minister, but for me in my situation, the way God had His plan written for me is that He wanted me to learn to be a good teacher, have practice that in the school and everything, school setting, and then bring that to the ministry, bring that to the mission that He has called me for. And that has helped me, be able to be a youth minister for these past 7 years, having that background, having those, that knowledge, those skills that you learn as a teacher has helped me get to where I am now, and has helped me bring the ministry, this youth ministry, to where it is today. And so those are just an examples how God, you come with a talent, whether you went to school, whether you didn't, it doesn't really matter. The thing here is that everybody's good at something, or everybody has a talent. Some people have talent of singing, and hey, you used to sing for the world, but you encounter Jesus, and they want to sing for the Lord, and that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Or different things. People have talents of, for example, these recording devices and the video, videography, and they did that for the world, but now they come and learn about Christ, and they use those talents to build up their ministry, or build up ministry. And so I think everybody has a talent. Everybody has something to offer. Everybody has something to bring to the table, and don't be afraid. Paul was honestly a crazy man who loved Jesus, and he kept going. He kept going, like you were saying. He will be put to death, but he kept going.
Yeah.
And so, for everybody that's hearing us, be motivated to whatever it is you're talent. Whether it's I knew a girl whose talent was to draw. She was good at art.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't think she could use that for God, but yeah, she began to draw, Christian images and like crosses, and she kind of also helped, whenever we had an event or something, she designed the flyers and the posters and everything, and brought another oomph to the advertisement, which you might think not a big deal, but actually it's a big deal, because it, if your advertisement is good, has that cool design, a cool touch, more people pay attention to it. More people catches their attention. Exactly. So, I mean, you might think your talent is small, but trust me, God can make that little small talent and use it for something big.
Yeah, amplifies it by 10, amplifies it by 100, and so basically, that's how in our lives we can see and put to example what we learned from Paul, because like you said, Paul did a lot of work in jail, through the tough times, through the good times. Paul did a lot of work and was willing to go through all that stuff. We should look at Paul as a great example of, like you said, to keep our talents, safe, and to put them to use into God's work. And I think that a lot of young people coming up into this world right now need to realize that yes, they have talents, but some people are putting them to the wrong places, and then they get unmotivated that they're not seeing fruits from that. They might be like, you know what, I was good at this, but I haven't seen an opportunity to use this or anything. Is because I think God is reserving them and waiting for them to come and to turn. Have that opportunity for them to have that encounter with Christ, so then He can amplify what He has given to them. And I think more than anything, I want this to be an example on this podcast, to be an example of a lot of people, being somebody who, you know, here's a lot of examples that for example, like you said, you studied to be a teacher, and how you put that to use into spreading in your ministry with the youth. And I want this to be an example of everybody to see, different people that are going to be coming on here, that, to grab something, to be like, hey, you know what, I was studying for this, I'm going to keep going because maybe God wants me to do that for that. Or something that they're doing. I want a lot of people to see that there is people being examples. Just like Paul was an example to us, there is people now who have taken what Paul teaches them, put it into their lives, and now they can be examples for the next generation, for the next group of people. And that's what I want this to be of, basically an example for, somebody on every episode to be like, hey, you know what, I'm going to take that and I see that and I can implement that into my life. I have an opportunity that I didn't see, and now I hear this, and now I can move forward and can try these things. And I think it's a beautiful thing that's happening right here. It's like an opportunity for me myself. I feel like God sometimes, I feel like, wants me to shut up sometimes, but I want to talk. I want to try my best. I want to give everything to God, and this was my part to Him. I want to give my opportunity to speak in Spanish, in English, in different languages, my social medias and stuff like that, to share and to show everybody, And I think it's very important that Paul is the beginning of this chapter, is the beginning of this uh, podcast, and in this chapter that's gonna happen, because there's just so much to talk about. I can't wait for all these new episodes that are gonna come out. Everybody that can have a different point of view and see different things from Paul. And so, is there anything else that you would like to add about Paul? Any lasting?
No, man. I mean, I like what you're doing here, and may God keep blessing you and help you do what you try and do. Happy to be your first guest, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
I am your brother, so I mean, if I wasn't your first guest, I don't know who would have been your first guest.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, Paul was a courageous man, and I feel like it takes courage to do this. So, he's leading right there by example. And yeah, even if things don't turn out your way, like it did for Paul many times, got thrown into jail a couple of times. So, even though things don't always go your way, guys, remember that God has a plan, and as long as you stay faithful to Him, as long as you stay towards that path, you're gonna get out of that place. You gotta get out of that wrong place, or that dark situation you find yourself, or that test, or that situation like Paul. He got out of jail many times. So always God always pulls through, and God always helps a brother out. And yeah, guys, I mean, Paul, the way he died, honestly, I feel like he gave it all. I think he died happy, knowing that he gave it all to Jesus. He did his best. He did what he was called to do, and he died, some could say, at a reasonable age, but some might think that was kind of young. In my opinion, it was a little young, but still, he did so much in that time. He did so much in that time, and till this day, we remember him. Amen. So, till this, if I die tomorrow and they remember me, even 10 years from today, like, I will be happy, because maybe not that they remember me, but they remember, what I did in Jesus' name. So the same thing, we remember Paul not because of Paul, we remember Paul because of what he did, exactly. Of what Jesus did through him.
Amen.
So yeah, man, I mean,
yeah, well, appreciate that. Appreciate taking time for supporting this, and appreciate you for speaking on a little bit of history, a little bit of who Paul was, and the things he did, and a little bit of how you related to him. And I guess this will be our signing off. I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I want y'all to stay tuned for these next episodes to come. Share this video, share with on Instagram the reels that I'm gonna be posting. Follow our pages, follow my apparel, follow everything I have, and I will greatly appreciate you. And I would like to thank everybody who has been supporting, and I want to wish and pray for this to be a blessing to reach all parts of the world. And that is my mission. Logging off. See you later on the next episode. Blessings.